I have the pleasure of introducing Donna Adams. She's going to be presenting on optimizing Social Security benefits. For over 2 decades, Donna Adams, sales director at Paradise Financial, has helped individuals define and prioritize their financial objectives and then developed sound strategies for attaining success. She educates her clients on strategies using an economic-based approach that is holistic, integrated, unconventional, and macroeconomic, with sophisticated tools rooted in actuarial science. Her goal is to help you maintain and enhance the quality of life you desire while you're working and well into retirement. Registered representative and investment advisor, representative of and securities offered through One America Securities, Inc., a registered investment advisor, member FINRA, SIPC. Paradise Financial Partners is not an affiliate of One America Securities and is not a broker-dealer or registered investment advisor, not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, or any governmental agency. That's what you're not. I hope you'll tell us more about what you are. And I'd just like to know, as we go through this presentation, are we going to keep questions towards the end?
Yes.
Okay, and we'll have people either through the chat or the Q&A give us some questions. So Donna, it's all yours.
Well, thank you. First of all, I want to say thank you so much to Jennifer and her staff for pulling this together and making this a reality in these complicated times that we're living in. And also I want to give a special shout out to all of our sponsors for making this possible. So thank you very much for that. As Carolyn mentioned, my name is Donna Adams. I'm a financial advisor for Paradise Financial Partners, and I've been in the business for almost 20 years now. So by law, I have to put up these disclaimers, so I'll give you just a few minutes to read through them. But while you're reading through them, I wanted to let you know that I'm going to be covering a lot of information today, and we will have some time for questions and answers at the end of the presentation. But please realize that I'm going to go through this as fast as I possibly can, and that this is pretty complicated stuff. So hopefully the takeaway will be that you'll understand and have some clarity about your decisions when it comes to Social Security benefits, because Social Security decision is one of the most important retirement decisions that you're going to make in your retirement years. So today what we're going to talk about is some of the benefits that are available to you, and we'll address one of the main questions is it going to be there? So just to go through a quick agenda here, we're going to talk about the retirement landscape, what it was and what it is today. And then we're going to go through some of the basic benefits that are out there. And then we're going to go through some benefits that you may or may not be aware of, and they might or might not apply to you. And then we're going to go through some additional aspects to consider, taxation and when to file and things like that. And then the most important question that is on everybody's mind is it going to be there when I retire? And then we'll talk a little bit about the importance of an integrated retirement approach and how you can increase your retirement income a little bit by applying some of these benefits and strategies together. So let's take a quick look at the retirement landscape of what it was and what it is today. Back when I was younger and my grandparents and my parents retired, the full retirement age was age 65, which was awesome because at that point in time, you know, they had Social Security, which gave them a lifetime income. They had pensions. They might have gotten a gold watch, or they had a retirement party for them. The employer threw a retirement party for them. And that was awesome. But you know what? That's not the way it is today anymore. Today, retirement is very, very complicated. You have some very, very complicated decisions to make. There are government programs out there like Social Security and Medicare, but the decisions you make are definitely going to impact how those benefits are paid to you. So as I mentioned earlier, hopefully we'll get through some of these options for you today. So the biggest thing to look at is back when my parents and grandfather retired, as I mentioned, the full retirement age was age 65. However, life expectancy was only 61. So if you made it to 65, wow, that was worth a big celebration and a retirement party because it just, the life expectancy wasn't there. I'm sure some of you people have heard that oh, Joe retired a year ago and he died. Well, yeah, because he was very lucky to live past his full retirement age. He lived to age 66 or his longevity. So now people are living for up to 87 years old for men and 89 years old for women. So what does that mean? That means that your retirement income has to last longer, 20, 25 years, based on previous when the life expectancy was only age 61. Maybe your retirement assets only needed to carry you for 6 or 7 years. So you're putting in today's environment, you're putting a very large strain on those assets to make sure that you're not going to run out of money. And the biggest decision you're going to make is your Social Security benefits. So let's look at our retirement income. And the way I try to explain it is kind of looking at a three-legged stool metaphor here. You've got the one leg that is a pension. You've got the other leg that's a Social Security benefit. And then you've got the third leg, which is your own potential savings and retirement savings. So there's a couple of them that are a little wobbly here. The pension benefit is kind of going away. There's only 18% of employers that offer a pension anymore. So if you're one of those lucky people that work for an employer that offers a pension, kudos to you. Make sure you stay there long enough to be able to collect that pension. But what happens here is it kind of is falling back more on you to make sure that you're saving for the retirement. Because of the pension shifting where the employer went from the defined benefit plan, which was the pension, to a defined contribution plan, which is your 401k and your own retirement savings. So things have shifted a little bit more here, and you are now more responsible for your retirement income. And it's really interesting that when I talk to people that are nearing retirement and I ask them, do you know how much money you have to work with when you're retired? They can give me a pretty close answer to that. But when I ask them, do you know how much income you can expect from that? They can't give me an answer. And then I also ask them, do you know how long you're going to live? And that's even another answer that I don't think anyone can give me because nobody knows that answer unless they have some health issues. So what do we do? How do we overcome those answers? Those unknown uncertainties of what our retirement's going to look like. So the first thing is let's look at the basic Social Security plans, which I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with. But let's just kind of review a little bit of what they look like. And sometimes when you think of what am I going to do in retirement, you look a little bewildered, like I'm not sure I'm going to have enough income. I'm just not sure it's going to last me a lifetime. I'm not sure my health is going to stay good. I'm not sure how long I'm going to live. So let's go through some of the basics and I can hopefully explain some of this to you. So the Social Security basics this is how it works. When you're working, you contribute 6.2% of your earnings to Social Security. And that's what your employer withholds from your check. All right. But the employer is also responsible for putting in another 6.2%. So that's a total of 12.4% going into Social Security benefits. If you're self-employed, you have to put in the entire 12.4% because you are the employee and the employer. So that's really important to know. But you have to remember in your mind that when you're contributing this money into the Social Security system, it's not for you. It's going to the people that are already collecting Social Security. And that's how the Social Security system was set up. That's why the question arises, is it still going to be there for me? Because think of it, with a baby boomers, there's a lot more people going into retirement than there are people working. So they're not, this money isn't going into the Social Security fund. That's the question, is why. But as things are turning around and life is a cycle, and I know my kids' friends are having a lot more kids now. They're having families of 4 and 6, so eventually there's going to be more workers in the Social Security system than there are people actually collecting Social Security. But there is a limit on what you pay. So if you make up to 137,700, after that, you've paid your entire contribution to the Social Security system for the year. So then they will no longer take that 6.2 out of your paycheck, or you will no longer have to pay that 12.4 to the rest of the year, because then at the beginning of the year, of course, your salary resets and this number might or might not change. So one of the key things that you have to know that determine the total benefits you're going to receive is your earnings history, when you actually claim, because there are some certain ages that you can start claiming at, and your longevity. And again, the last one is going to be a determination that is pretty hard to figure out. And then there's 2 ways that you can qualify. You have to work and contribute to the Social Security for at least 40 quarters or 10 years. Right? So that's one qualification. And then there's another qualification. If your spouse worked and contributed to Social Security for 40 quarters or 10 years, you can still collect Social Security even if you've never worked a day in your life. Or if your spouse is deceased, you could still collect some of his Social Security, and we'll get into that in a little bit. And typically you earn 4 credits a year. So one of the important things to remember as I'm going through this presentation is there's some acronyms, FRI or FRA, which means full retirement age, and PIA, which means primary insurance amount. Now, according to this chart, your full retirement age is kind of flexing right now until we hit the year of 1960, people going into retirement. So if you're were born in 1943 to 1954, your full retirement age is 66. In 1955, it's 66 and 2 months. So every year is going up by 2 months until, if you were born in 1960, then from 1960 on, your full retirement age is going to be 67. Now, how are those benefits calculated? Well, they're calculated by taking the 35 years of your highest earnings. So in other words, if you worked for 20 years, and in those 20 years, first 3 years you worked, the next year you didn't work, and they add up the 35 years, those years get 0 that you didn't work. So that's directly going to impact your retirement income and Social Security, because you're getting a 0 for the years you didn't work. So even if you just can, put a little bit in by working a part-time job or something, then at least it can help you increase those benefits. But here's the thing to remember on what I've just covered here is that in order to qualify for Social Security, you have to work 40 quarters or 10 years. But the way they calculate your Social Security benefit is based off of the 35 years of your highest earnings. So that's really key to remember. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there's different ages that you can collect your benefits. You can claim your benefits as early as age 62, but that's going to be a very reduced benefit because you're not at full retirement age right now until you're 66. So when you reach your full retirement age, you're going to get your full benefit. So you're going to get your primary insurance amount. But if you're fortunate enough and you can delay your collecting the Social Security benefit from age 66, 67, 68, 69, each year is going to give you a little bit more of a Social Security benefit until you reach age 70. At age 70, you've maxed out. So there's no reason, there's no incentive to wait to collect Social Security after the age of 70 because it's not going to increase anymore. So the question becomes is when should you file? At age 62 or wait till your age 70? So let's go through a few more slides and hopefully you can get a better understanding of what this might mean for you. So and then you also have to look at what happens if you want to take your Social Security, but you still want to work. What's going to happen to your Social Security benefit? Well, if you're below your full retirement age, and you make more than $18,240, $1 of your benefit is going to be withheld of any earnings above that limit, all right? But now the year of your full retirement age, and so I do want to take a minute here to explain what they mean by the year and the month of. The year of your full retirement age says, in January, that's the year that you are qualified for your full retirement age of 66 or 66 and how many other months it is. But your birthday isn't until November, all right? Then your Social Security is still going to be taxable because you're not really 66 yet. So they put that limit up a little bit higher so you're allowed to work and have an income of no more than $48,600, because for every dollar over that limit, you're going to pay $1 of benefits for every $3 of earnings above that limit. You're going to be, your retirement income is going to be reduced, okay? And then if you actually start the benefit, your Social Security benefit, in November of your full retirement age, then there is no limit to how much money you can make, and the Social Security benefit won't be reduced. All right, so then another thing comes in line when you're trying to make the decision of when should I take my Social Security. The power of patience is really a key factor here. And I'm just going to put this full chart up because it just makes it a little easier to be able to see and understand. So anywhere between the ages of 62 and 65, you're going to receive reduced benefits. So as you can see here, if you're 62, you're going to receive about $1,200 a month, which is only about 75% of your full benefit. And every year it increases a little bit. And when you actually do hit your full retirement age, that's when they give you 100% of your benefits. But as you can see, the longer you wait, you get a little bit more of your benefit every year, the longer you wait. And when you hit age 70, you get 132% of your benefit. So there is, an incentive to wait longer, but to make that decision, you have to really take into consideration a lot of factors, your health, your income needs and things like that. So somewhere in there is the sweet spot for you to start taking your Social Security benefit. So let's just look at benefit amounts at a glance here. For 2020, the average Social Security benefit for Americans was $1,503 a month. That's the average that people were taking. And this also included the cost of living adjustment of 1.6%. But the maximum Social Security benefits for 2020 is if you claimed at age 62 is $2,265. So as you can see, the average is well under what the maximum Social Security benefit is. If you wait to your full retirement age 66, and however many months, that maximum benefit goes up to $3,011 a month, which is pretty decent money. But then if you wait to your age 70, the maximum benefit right now is $3,790. But one thing to remember is that is adjusted for cost of living sometimes. So that number could go up. But there's no guarantee that it will go up. So let's look at some additional available benefits here. And this is where it really gets to be really involved in the decision you need to make. So the first one we're going to look at is the worker benefit. And that's the most common one. That's what everyone is really familiar with, is when I retire, I get my worker Social Security benefit. And again, just as a little review here, it's based on the 35 highest years of earnings that were taxed for Social Security. And they are inflation adjusted. And it's permanently reduced when you claim before your full retirement age. And it's permanently increased when you claim after your full retirement age. And what do I mean by permanently? Is once you make these decisions, they're irrevocable. And there are some exceptions, and we'll get to a slide later in the presentation that will explain those exceptions to you. So another benefit that people really either don't know about or don't fully understand is that there's this spousal benefit. And this spousal benefit states that if you are married, you can claim 50% of your spouse's primary insurance amount when you reach your full retirement age. And that's true whether you've worked or not, all right? So if you have been a stay-at-home mom and taking care of kids and just been a type of person, or even a stay-at-home dad, or you're home because you took care of the kids and now you're taking care of aging parents and you've never worked a day in your life, you can still collect 50% of your spouse's Social Security benefit. But there's a little caveat here, and that is you can only collect it when the higher earner claims it. So that means that even though you've reached your full retirement age, but your spouse has not reached their full retirement age, or even if he hasn't reached his full retirement age and he wants to take it sooner, unless he actually starts taking his Social Security, you can't get that spousal benefit. All right, so that's something to think about and run the numbers and try to understand. Does it make sense for me to start claiming 50% of the spouse's Social Security benefit and have him start claiming earlier, because now we can get a little bit more because of my 50% rule? You really need to work the numbers and figure out what is the best thing to do. And again, that helps you make that decision on the timing. When do I file for my Social Security benefit? Now, they are permanently reduced if they're claimed before your full retirement age. So in other words, if you make the decision that the working spouse is going to start claiming at age 62, when he turns 66, you cannot change that. He is there, all right? That is locked in permanently. There's no going back. So make sure you run the numbers and you understand the numbers. And then there's no increase for delaying it beyond the full retirement age. So it doesn't make sense to wait until 70, because it's not going to be any more of a benefit, because you're going to get the primary insurance amount. You will not get that higher benefit. So that's something to think about also. Another one that a lot of people don't know about, and this one is a little complicated, is an ex-spousal benefit. So what do I mean by an ex-spousal? Well, you can qualify for Social Security benefits of an ex-spouse. And the qualifications have to be that you're unmarried, you're 62 years or older, you've been married, you were married for at least 10 years, and divorced for 2. So that's a lot of qualifications to fit. But should you fit those qualifications, you're entitled to 50% of your ex's retirement benefit. So that's huge. Again, if you've never worked a day in your life, it's a way to get some extra income for retirement. And if your ex has been deceased, when you turn 62 and meet all these requirements, you can actually collect 100% of your ex's benefit. It's called the ex's survivor benefit, which is huge. And a lot of people don't know that this is out there. So when we talk about this one, it really opens up a lot of eyes. Now, the one thing to remember is that it has no impact on your ex-spouse's Social Security benefit or your ex-spouse's current spouse Social Security benefit. As a matter of fact, they're not even notified that you are taking this benefit. So if they were entitled to $2,000 a month and you came in and said, I want my 50%, you would get $1,000 a month. He would still get, your ex would still get the $2,000 a month. There's no impact to them at all. So it's something to really consider. Now, if you've remarried after age 60, so you don't have to stay an ex, you can remarry, but if you remarry before age 60, this doesn't count. But if you remarry after age 60, you're still eligible for the ex-spouse's survivor benefit. You're no longer eligible for the 50% of the retirement benefit, but you are eligible for 100% of the survivor benefit. And it's not subject to any maximum benefit limits. So that's a key one to know. There's so much money that's left on the table when it comes to Social Security income because people just aren't aware that this is happening. So I put a little bit of an example in here because I know that was a little, hard to just explain. So let's talk a little bit about an ex-spousal benefit, and they've been married multiple times. All right. So let's take a look at this case. So Claire, age 57, was a teacher, and she had inconsistent earnings. There were some years that she earned 0 because when her children were younger, she made the decision to stay at home and didn't work at all. Right. And because of that, and looking through the 10 years, she did qualify for, the 40 quarters or 10 years. And she did have, limited, she didn't make that 35-year minimum. So her primary insurance amount is pretty low. It's $850 a month. So now she meets Greg, and it's her first husband. And they were divorced after 15 years. But in that time frame after they were divorced, Greg unfortunately passed away. But Greg's primary insurance amount was $1,250. Well, Claire goes out and she meets Steve, and Steve, they decide to get married. But then her and Steve also got divorced after 11 years. Very unfortunate. So Steve's primary insurance amount is $1,800. So looking at this chart, it makes sense for Claire to claim Steve's Social Security benefit, right? Well, that's not true, because when you have to look at those rules and those qualification requirements. So let's look at it in a different light. Claire's primary insurance amount was $850. Greg's primary insurance amount was the $1,250. Now remember, he's deceased, all right? And so because she met these requirements being married to him, she's entitled to 100% of the survivor benefit, right? But because Steve, her second husband, she didn't meet all the rules and regulations there. So Steve's primary insurance amount was $1,800, but she's only entitled to the $900. She's only entitled to 50% of that because Steve's still living, all right? So it makes sense for her to collect Greg's Social Security, all right? So that's really important to understand. And again, it boils down to working the numbers and knowing what those numbers really mean. Now, this is another benefit that's out there. It's called the widower, survivor benefit. It's all the same, right? It doesn't make any difference. It's just the way people talk about it, I guess. But what's important here is that if you're a widow or a widower, there's survivor benefits out there for you. And you can be eligible as young as age 60, but you're going to have permanently reduced benefits if you claim it at age 60. And you're entitled to 100% of the deceased spouse benefit at your full retirement age. So in other words, if you collect at age 66 here, you're going to get 100% of the Social Security benefit. And again, there's no reason to wait any longer than the full retirement age because it doesn't go up anymore after 100%. That's the most you can claim for this benefit. Then we get into, and this one is a great one, and we've helped quite a few people through this presentation understand that they've got some benefits out there that they can collect on. And it's benefits for children. I mean, people don't realize that there are certain circumstances where children can collect Social Security. And now the dependent child is the one that's going to collect the Social Security. It's not the parent here, it's the dependent child. So that child has to be unmarried, all right, has to be at least 18 or under, and has to be a legal dependent of the parent. They have to be legally dependent. And they can receive 50% of the benefit if the parent is the legal guardian and living, and they can receive 100% or 75% of the benefit if the legal guardian is deceased. So who's eligible? Biological children, stepchildren, adopted child, grandchild, step-grandchild. But what people don't understand here is what makes them eligible. I mean, we know that as long as they're legally dependent and you have full custody of this child, that child can collect Social Security benefits. And what helps them, what qualifies them is maybe they've got some disabilities, you know, that's a huge one. So if you have a living, a guardian, if you're a guardian for a child that has disability, they can collect Social Security benefits, okay? And depending whether the guardian is living or deceased. So that's key. This one gets left on the table a lot. Now, there's also this benefit, and they call it young parent benefits, and it's kind of deceiving. It doesn't mean that you're young and you get a benefit, all right? It's for parents of the children receiving the benefits we just talked about, all right? So if you got a child that's receiving that benefit, and that child is still under the age of 16, the parent, the legal guardian of that child, can also collect a Social Security benefit, which is 50% on the higher earners primary insurance amount. So what does that mean? So you're working with you're a grandparent, and all of a sudden your child has a child. So now you've got a grandchild that your child decides that it has some, you know, some disability issues, and they really don't want to deal with it. So now you've taken custody of this child, and you have to stop working because you're taking care of this child, but your spouse is still working. So you're entitled to 50% of your spouse's primary insurance amount until that child turns 16. So that's another one that people just don't know about. And like I said, it's a little deceiving the way they call it the young parent. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're young and can collect the Social Security benefit. And, you know, I believe you heard me say a lot, people just don't know these benefits are out there. And one of the reasons why is because the workers at the Social Security Board are mandated that they cannot help you and explain these benefits to you. So when you go into the Social Security Board, basically what's happening is that they're going to give you a piece of paper and they're going to say, or a form, and they're going to say, fill it out and collect your benefit. You have no idea that these benefits are options for you because number one, you've not heard of them. And number two, they can't ask you questions. They can't ask you, do you have dependent children at home? You know, were you married before? Are you widowed? They're not allowed to ask those questions. So it's really important to have some education before you go into the Social Security Administration. Now, the additional aspects to consider, this is very, very complicated. So just for, you know, in lieu of being respectful of my time here, I just want to let you know that it's out there. And if you fall into one of these situations, make sure you do some research here. But there are special rules for public servants, all right? And those public servants are teachers, police officers, our firefighters, our government employees. Because you see, these people believe or have been told, or it's a myth, that they're not allowed to collect Social Security. Well, that simply isn't true. There are or might be some Social Security benefits available for them, depending on a lot of requirements. Like I mentioned, it's very, very complex. But there are situations where these public servants can collect Social Security along with their pension. However, if you are one of these people and you fall into this group that you can collect the Social Security, there are some additional rules once it's determined that you are allowed to collect it. And there's really two rules. One is called the windfall elimination provision, and that impacts your own Social Security benefit, which means because you might be eligible for the Social Security, but you have your pension available to you, it might be a reduced Social Security amount that you can collect, or you might not be able to collect it at all. So really the first thing you have to do is determine, is it available to you? And then you go into the next step of the rules and regulations here. And the other one is the government pension offset. And this impacts the benefits that you are entitled to as an eligible spouse. So it doesn't necessarily impact the public servant, but it impacts the public servant spouse. All right, so I can't stress enough how complicated this Social Security benefit is, but sometimes it does work in your benefit to get that, all right, or to be eligible for it. And then, as I mentioned earlier, you know, there are these cost of living adjustments that happen, and it just helps offset the increase of retirement expenses and inflation and things like that. But it's not guaranteed, all right? It is not guaranteed. In 2018, we had a 2% cost of living increase. In 2019, it was 2.8. This year in 2020, it went down to 1.6. So it's not guaranteed that you're even going to get it. There might be years where it'll be zero, but the government does look at the cost of living adjustment and does their best with it. Now, the other thing you have to think about is the taxation of Social Security benefits, because even though I believe that some people think Social Security isn't taxed, well, it can be, all right? And the key here is the percentage of the benefits tax is based on combined income. So if you're married, it's going to be a combined income. And it also has a formula. And this formula is your adjusted gross income plus tax exempt income plus half of your Social Security benefit. So here are the limits, all right? So if you're single or married, filing joint, the 0% of benefits are taxable from 0 to 25,000 if you're filing single, and 0 to 32,000 if you're filing joint. So that's 50% of your Social Security benefit will be taxable. And then the next jump is, anything above the 34,000 of income versus and 44,000 if you're filing joint, then 85% of your benefits are taxable. So I did put a quick little formula here so you can see the impact of this. So remember, it is joint income if you're married filing jointly. So Mark's Social Security is 18,000, Amy's Social Security is 15,000. Mark has a pension 25,000. Mark and Amy both have IRA distributions of 10,000 and 12,000, which gives them $80,000 of income. So that's well over the $44,000 mark. But only half of that Social Security is going to be taxable, because remember the formula was half of the Social Security. So what does that actually do? Let's take a look at it. So the half of the Social Security is 63,500. So we've got the 0 to 32,000. The combined income was 63,500. So 32,000 you're not taxed on at all. And then the next quadrant is 32,000 to 44,000, and that's $12,000 worth of income, and only that's taxed at 50%. So that's $6,000 of taxable income. And then anything more than that 44,000, which is the 19,500 to come up with that 63,500, is taxed at 85%. So you have $22,575 of taxable income that year. So
I just have to give you the 5-minute warning. We've got some questions queued up. So if you can try to wrap in 5 minutes, we'll have time for questions.
Yep, I'm right at the end here. So, let's look at, is it going to be there? Well, those taxes that you pay go into an annual fund. And in 2020, the government started dipping into that annual fund. But they also are collecting 80% from, they've got 80% of payroll taxes coming in. So they'll pay about 80% of the promised benefit. So the benefit's going to be there for you. And there's also going to be some possible legislative solutions to Social Security. And here's just a few of them, reduction of COLAs, combination of all of these. But I really believe the government is not going to let our Social Security just go away really quick. So we'll look at the integrated approach, and Social Security makes up for about 40% of your income. And there's other income sources, as we mentioned, your 401k, your own personal retirement savings. But here's, when I talk about this integrated approach, your retirement income strategy can help you successfully get through the income here. But it's an irrevocable decision when you make these decisions on what you're doing with your Social Security. And as I mentioned, there's some options here. So if you made the decision and you're 1 year before you've collected it all, you can change your mind. But remember, if you reverse it, if you decide to claim at age 62 and then you want to wait till age 66, you still are in that 1 year date. You're going to have to pay back anything that they've given back to you. Okay, and after you hit that 1 year date, there's no going back. You cannot change your decision. But you may be eligible to increase your benefit beginning at the full retirement age through suspension. But what if you could look at a strategy that's going to allow you to retire with the money you wanted or without the fear of running out of money? It's important to look at your strategies out there. And what if you could potentially increase your retirement income by 30 to 50% and not have to put any more money into your retirement savings and not increasing your risk? You can guarantee more of your income retirement that way by having these integrated strategies. So we just want to make sure that you look at all your options out there to make sure you're optimizing your Social Security benefit. So really the key takeaway from today is to make sure that you work with someone who understands what benefits are available to you before you go to the Social Security Administration and make that decision and sign those papers. So with that, we'll open it up to questions.
Thank you very much, Donna. The first question, and there are three, now four, how does the 8% increase after my FRA work? Is it based on a fraction of each month I delay it, or is it calculated annually? For instance, assuming my FRA is age 67, if I retire at 67 and a half, will I receive a prorated 8% increase, or is it better to wait until I turn 68 to receive the full 8% increase?
It's monthly. It's calculated monthly. So if you can wait that until you're totally 68, it's going to be better for you, because remember, once you make that decision and once you turn on the Social Security benefit, you cannot take it back. It's irrevocable.
Okay, question number 2. Is the spousal benefit paid in addition to the benefits that the spouse is receiving?
Okay, so the spousal, if you're the spouse and you want to collect your spousal's Social Security, so I'm just going to put it easier to explain. If you're the wife and you want to collect your husband's Social Security, you as the wife are entitled to half of that, and your husband is entitled to his full Social Security at whatever age he retires. So in other words, if he's making $1,000 a month as the wife, you're entitled to $500 of that, and he still gets his full $1,000 a month. So together you would be able to collect $1,500 a month.
Okay. What if spouse claims Social Security benefits at 62 and you wait until your FRA? Can you claim 50% of spouse's full FRA?
No, what you are entitled to is what your spouse decided to take. So as I mentioned, it's really important to make that decision. Doesn't make sense to have them take their Social Security earlier, because then you get to take, you only get half of it, but it doesn't make more sense, because to get combined, you're going to make more in Social Security. So you really have to do the math.
All right. Next, now this is real specific. 61 years old today, hardly contributed toward Social Security, have been receiving SSI since 2015. However, whenever I work, the monthly income is singled or substantially reduced.
Canceled.
I think canceled. Okay. I think that I only have 15 quarters. What are your suggestions, recommendations for people in my situation?
Well, that's really hard, because I need to know a little bit more about your current situation before I could actually give you a definitive answer on that.
And that's certainly understandable. And we're going to recommend that this person follow up with you directly. I do have another question. Children can get Social Security when parents are divorced?
Yes, they can, but again, there's special qualifications that you have to file. So any of these decisions on making the Social Security, it's not a one fits all. It's all determined by specific individual situations. Okay.
I think we've got time for one or two more. If you are divorced and meet all of the criteria to receive 50% of ex-spouse's benefit, will the Social Security office share with you how much benefit your ex-spouse has?
They will. The only thing you need, you don't need to know his amount, because they'll be able to look it up, but you will need their Social Security number for them to look that up.
All right. Lastly, if a person's Social Security benefit and retirement analysis was provided by Social Security staff, is that enough?
Probably not. And again, I'd have to look at what they were provided by Social Security to honestly answer that question.
That's certainly understandable. If you want to go ahead and make sure we have your contact information by putting it into the box again, we'll make sure that these people with specific examples contact you direct.